tardes. Buenos dias. Good morning. Good morning to all. Guten Morgen. Good morning. Thank you for being here, for everybody that is here. This afternoon, I'm giving announcements, if you didn't notice. Slide right into it. This afternoon, we have our Fall Fest from 4 to 7. It is going to be so much fun, and I will get this right this time. Instead of pointing this way, pointing this way. We have a car show, chili cook-off, and in here, we're going to have bouncers for the kids and some, festival games. They're going to be so much fun. And we have a hot chocolate station with cookies and all that jazz. So get your families here. Grab your grandkids. Grab your kids. It's going to be a fun time to just hang out and fellowship with each other. If you have not entered into the chili cook-off, there's still time. There is still time because you can throw it on the stovetop and make it. So if you want to enter into the chili cook-off, please get with Melissa after service if you haven't entered already. And who is running the car show again? Okay, if you want to throw in your car last minute, Aaron was saying that he wanted to show off his truck. I'm just kidding. So this morning we have Pastor Errol preaching, but before I introduce him, I can't talk this morning. I'm sorry, y'all. I have a slight bit of dyslexia, and sometimes I get speaking too fast. I want to remind you that next weekend, Saturday and Sunday, that we do not have service. This is so that y'all can have y'all's family time, but I want y'all to know that we respect y'all's family time, that there is time for us to be together as a church family, and there's a time for y'all to be with y'all's personal families. So take this time and be together, but don't miss that week coming after that, because we'll kick back off together and worship together. There's something that happens whenever we come together and we worship together, and then there's something that happens whenever we go out and we minister to people. Our first ministry is at home, but the week after that, come together and worship with us. All right, without further ado, this morning we have our very own special pastor. Will you give him a round of applause as he comes up? Pastor Errol Hainer.
You might want to come get this, Charity. I was introduced one time I was a youth minister for many, many years, and I wound up being an overseer for many youth ministries, and we worked with about 40 churches, and I had about 18 that were very active. Anyway, they introduced me one time. It was a packed house of teens, and they said, and now, the only windmill that runs on water, Pastor Errol Hainer. You think about that just for a minute. Y'all are from West Texas. Come on, think about that. Y'all are really slow. Wake up. Hey, Mom, get some Geritol. Come on, let's go. Wake up. Are you good this Sunday morning? I know a lot of people are out and they're waiting for this afternoon and all this stuff, but you are here. So today, I want you to do something with me that is, you can turn the house lights up just a little bit. I turned them down, or had them turn them down, but boy, I tell you what, just bring it up a little bit because you can't see to read the word, or, that's important. I think it's important. I don't care what everybody else thinks. I think it's important. Would you stand with me? I'm going to pray something over you. Stand with me if you can. If you can stand with me, That's exactly right. If Terry can stand, you can stand. I'm just saying, and I appreciate that. So, it's truly amazing, and the declaration I'm going to make over you has everything to do with what God is doing in our lives. And you know that and I just realized I deleted this out. Just like I do, that God is doing some amazing things in this time. So let us move in with what he's got for us. And I'm going to read it out of the New King James. Or let me see. Let me go down just a little further. I'm sorry. Let's go down just a little further. I know it. That is truly, this is what happens when Terry can sit down, but the rest of you have to stand with me here. My gosh. This is honestly what happens when you have, I thought today I'll use a computer because Thomas comes up here all the time with computers, and I'm thinking, I can start using a computer. My gosh. And here I am scrolling through this. I want a specific message, and it's the TPT, and I may just have to read it out of something else. Do you have it right there? It is 2 Timothy chapter 3. My gosh. 1. Verse 1. I'm going to stand right up here and read it, and I'm going to declare it over you, okay? Verse 1. But you need to be aware that in the final days, this is the last day. So when did the last days start? They started when Jesus said, I'll be back. The culture of society will become extremely fierce. People will be self-centered, lovers of themselves, and obsessed with money. They will boast about great things as if they strut around in arrogant pride and mock all that is right. They will ignore their own families. They will be ungrateful and ungodly. They will become addicted to hateful and malicious slander, slaves of their own desires, and they will be frivolous, ferocious, belligerent, haters of what is good and right. With brutal treachery, they will act without restraint, bigoted and wrapped in clouds of their own conceit. They will find their delight in the pleasures of this world more than the pleasures of loving God. They will pretend to have respect for God, but in reality, they will have nothing to do with God's power. Stay away from these people, for they are the ones who worm in their way into the hearts of vulnerable women, spending the night with those who are captured by the lust and steeped in sin. They are always learning, but never discover the revelation knowledge of truth. History has given us an example of this in the Egyptian sorcerers, Jannes and Jambres, who stood against Moses in their arrogance. So it will be in the last days with those who reject the faith with their corrupt minds and arrogant hearts, standing against the truth of God. But they will not advance, for everyone who sees this madness, just as they did with Jannes and Jambres. But you, Timothy, and I say you, Pramarillo, have closely followed the example and the truth that's been laid out and imparted to you. You have modeled your life after the love and endurance I have demonstrated in the ministry by not giving up. The faith I have, you have now. What I have hungered for in the life now have become your longing as well. And the patience I have with others, you now demonstrate. That was my prayer for you today. Father, I thank you for this as the standing of the reading of the word. And we declare that over us, Father God, the faith and the patience to walk through this life in Christ's name. Amen. Now you can be seated. Well, that was just a little bit, but I appreciate that. I do appreciate you getting that. My computer was still going, scrolling, looking. Paul lays to Timothy something out that's very important for us to understand. When I was younger, I heard this passage spoke on many times. I got to be honest with you. There'll be days that are coming. And I thought, yeah, well, we're not living in them yet. I've literally been in service and been in towns where Sunday was sacred. Wednesday was sacred. We don't live in those days anymore. Even amongst Christians, do you know that about 48% of Americans consider themselves to be Christian? 48%. When I was a kid, it was 75, almost 80%. It's about 48% now. You know how many people go to church now since COVID? Before COVID, it was 15%. After COVID, it's between 10 and 12% that actually attend church. That attend regularly. You know what a good member is? Someone who comes once a month. To any service. That is considered a regular attender today. Okay? All right? I'm just saying that's what it's come down to. So has the time changed just a little bit? Come on, has the time changed just a little bit? So some of y'all woke up. I woke up to go teach ministers on October 7th. That was what I was doing on October 7th that morning. I had not turned my TV on. I had not heard about what was going on in Israel. I had not paid attention because I got up. I had ministers I needed to go teach. So I went to Southwest Church of Christ and I taught ministers that day is what I did. for the first hour and a half. And one of my minister friends said, I know you're teaching today, but did you hear what's going on in Israel? I said, not a clue. She told me what was going on. I said, wow, you got to be kidding. That's Luke chapter 22. That's Matthew 24. And it's just the fulfillment of prophecy here that's continued to go on. Is the Lord returning? Yes, that's all we can really agree on, because you nor I really know the date, and I don't care how much stuff and how many blood moons and how many stars change and how many little things happen. You don't know the day. Neither do I. So we have to live our lives. Now think about this. We have to live our lives as though yesterday Jesus died, today he resurrected, and tomorrow he's coming. And that's how I live my life. I just trust that the Lord, what he said, I'm going to do. Now, what happens though is when he delays, hope delays, what does it do to the soul? Put stress on the soul. So that's why you have to come to service. It's one of the reasons service is so important. So we do two things. We go and then we gather. Then we go, then we gather. That's how we do it. And we've been doing that for a good while. We go and then we gather. Why do we gather? We gather to encourage and strengthen and help each other. We go so that we literally affect the world. Paul said Matthew said it's going to be like the days of Lot and Noah. Now, what happened to Lot? What happened in his life? He was told by an angel, too, but particular, that destruction's coming. Get ready. Get ready. Get your family ready. And by the way, when he went to God, he said, God, if there's 20 people, there's 10 people. He took it all the way down to his family, and he says, if there'll be this many, who did he get out with? Him, his wife, and his 2 daughters. Not even 5. Not even 5 got out. And then his wife turned back. You see? What happened in Noah's time? He preached, Hebrews says he preached for 100 years. Do you think times are bad now? 100 years and no one was converted except his family. That's pretty serious. Either he was a terrible speaker or they didn't believe him. What's it say? There's a time that's coming when they will not believe sound doctrine any longer. What is sound doctrine? What is sound doctrine? Let me explain to you what sound doctrine is. Sound doctrine is this, and this is the most offensive in the religious worlds, and it's considered to be very intolerant of others to say there's only one God. To say there's only one way in salvation to that Father. It is considered intolerant and offensive to say that salvation is through faith and not the things that you do for others. It is offensive to say being good doesn't get God's favor. It is offensive to say that all other religions who pray to a God does not pray to Jehovah, does not pray to our Father, because they do not pray through Jesus. That is extremely offensive, and you're very intolerant for saying it, but it's the truth. If you're praying to somebody other than Jesus, to the Father, you do not know the Father. 1 John chapter 2, verse 18 through 23 says, if we don't recognize the Son, we do not have the Father in us. Hold on, let me say it again. If we do not recognize the Son, we do not have the Father in us. World religion says, whoever you're praying to, that's God. Bull. I'll tell you one of the easiest ways to know if it's Christ or not. Are you led in peace? Are you led in peace? If you are not led in peace, it is not from God. Like Lot, like Noah. Noah took the animals, 2 by 2 by 2 by 2. You know, they had plenty of time after building the ark, still to go up the ramp, still to get up there, still to become part of Noah's group. You guys, all those who are listening, we need to become like the third monkey trying to get on the ark. We need to be fighting with the fierceness in us for what God is doing. We got to quit this idea that, he's waited. This is the same story that the Scripture says over and over and over. And I'm not trying to stir you up to say that we got to get ready to leave. I'm going to stir you up to say we need to stay. We need to be engaged. There are thousands of people getting saved regularly. And America, in its little area that it is going, there's no need for God. It's doing exactly what the Scripture is saying. There's no need to God. There's no need to worry about this. But here's the thing that's amazing. God has given us His faith to live by. If you have Him in your life, and you're living in Him, and everything you have is His, and everything you do is in Him, you have no fear of His coming. Period. He can come anytime. It's no big deal. But if you don't have that, there are a lot of people in church today who live about the Lord. I mean, they do good things. And I give. And 10% right off the top. You need to read 2 Corinthians chapter 9, by the way. I give. I serve. I sing in the choir. I play the band. I set up chairs. Whatever it is. I stuff the envelopes. It doesn't matter. I greet people at the door. I pray with people. I prophesy. I pray for healing and people are healed. The Bible says there'll be many in that day that'll do all those things and they'll say, I'm sorry. And you know, laying on hands and prophesying are a couple of them that he says they'll do. What? Because they'll be fooled not to let him be Lord of their life. They'll be fooled to do about the things of ministry. I was talking with one of my mentors. You know him very well, Dr. Wayne Niffen, this week particularly. And we were chit-chatting, and I was visiting about a minister who, when I first met him, was a jerk. It's God honest truth. First time I met him, he was just a jerk. And I thought, man, what a jerk. I can say that because I am one. You know, not a jerk, but a preacher. I knew y'all were thinking that. See, I knew y'all were thinking that. Just seeing if you're awake. But literally, I met him at a conference, and I said, hi, I'm Errol Hainer. He goes, that's nice, and turned around and walked off. I go, what a jerk. Honest to God truth. He was doing about the ministry all the time. About the ministry. 2 years later, he's fired from that church, and I met him at an opportunity with about 20 churches, and I actually happened to be the speaker that night. And it's a large church here in town, and I was leading the service, and at the end of the service, I'm just taking care of some things, greeting some people, and he comes up and he goes, what's your name? I said, I remember you, Errol Hainer. And he goes, man, you're a fantastic. What you spoke was life tonight. Okay, this isn't the same guy that I met 2 or 3 years earlier. Not the same guy at all. 9-day difference. What happened? He was doing about the ministry, about the lordship of the life, and when he went through great trauma and chaos, he found the Lord. Hold on, he was standing in front of thousands of people ministering the gospel as a jerk. When he found the Lord, he was humbled, he was gentle, he was welcoming. And I stood there and talked to him for a few minutes, and I go, this ain't the same person. Wow. Wow. And I was telling Wayne that this week. He goes, yep. He went on to pastor another church, got hurt again, and he quit the ministry, and he's no longer a minister at all. And I said, well, has he still got the new life? He goes, as far as I know, he does. I said, you know, you can minister no matter where you're at. No matter where you're at. We have to learn to build a kingdom culture. We have to learn to build a kingdom culture here. See, one of the things that's very difficult is we've been taught and we have learned to be tolerant of everything. I'm being honest. You have learned to be tolerant of things in your life. Let's just go to the silly cell phone. You know where people get their news today? Thank you, Facebook. You know where they get it at Facebook? Off of Reels. That's the newest thing. That's not new now. It's been out for a while. But they get it off of Reels. That's one of the reasons we run Reels for the Prayer Murillo. You'll see clips and stuff like that of us preaching, right? Because it'll have something terrible, and all of a sudden there's a reel of us. It's like, oh, thank God, you know. There'll be everything sexual to everything righteous in Reels. And whatever you entertain yourself with, the algorithm is what comes back to you. It's just the way it works. So if you watch something sexual, it'll come right back and you'll have a whole bunch of them. Or somebody will send them to you. Somebody sends you one thing on a reel sexual, and it will automatically grab an algorithm and start sending you lots of them until you delete 5,000 times and remove it. I've talked to men about this all the time. That little phone right there can become a demon real quick for your life. You got to be very careful. We become so tolerant. Why? Because it's easy to smooth stuff into us and go, it's not a big deal. Hey, that ain't no big deal. It's not a big deal to slyly say something off the side of your mouth. And then every conversation then becomes something, well, it slips out, and people who are around you who know you go, don't do that, man. Don't say that. They can tell what's going on in your life. See, we've been taught to be tolerant and accept others and see themselves as they see themselves. When I was a teenager coming into football, our coaches taught us to say, yes, ma'am, no, ma'am. Yes, sir, no, sir. Now, by the way, I had learned that before I ever got out into elementary. By the time I was 3 years old and I could talk, it was please and thank you and yes, ma'am, and no, ma'am, and yes, sir, and no, sir. What'd you call me? I'm sorry. Yes, sir. And so I met one of my friends from when I was a kid, and his mom and dad were there, and I said, it is so nice to meet you, ma'am, again. And she goes, oh, you got some of those southern ways of saying yes, ma'am, and yes, sir. And I said, yes, ma'am, I do. She said, that is so, so wonderful that you have that in you. You don't hear it anymore. It's rare. And I thought, rare? Man, I'm telling you what, I would have, my children learn to say that stuff real quick. Unless it's passed on. See, we become so tolerant of other people's sins, we don't think nothing about it anymore. And I'm not saying that there is a point of having people grow up and they have to do their own thing until they recognize, because, I mean, all of you got children, right? I got children. And sometimes you're like, oh, I'll give them what they need to know. And I do. They come to ask me, they come and ask my opinion or my thoughts, but I don't live their life. I don't live in their home. I don't live where they're at. They have to pay their bills. They're off my payroll. That's how I know they're grown up. They're off my payroll. I mean, they're not even on my cell phones, and they're not on my insurance anymore. You see? They're grown-ups. I counted it up. Last night I was just thinking about it. I go, Dina, there are 17 of us going to be in the house. And your mother, that makes 18. There's going to be 17 of our, that's what you get for winking at a girl. 17. 3 daughters, 3 son-in-laws. That's 8 of us. 9 grandchildren. You wonder why I got a Jeep? Yeah, that's why. There's an escape button. We become tolerant not of the good things, we become tolerant of the bad stuff. We become tolerant of the bad stuff. We're missing what understanding of Lot, and we're missing the understanding of the ark and Noah. And literally, we need to be fighting like the third monkey getting on. Come on. I'm not going to be left. I'm going to be a scrapper. I'm going to get out, and I'm concerned for my friends. I'm concerned for my family. Have we not had enough yet to step up and do what's right? Because I guarantee you this group out here doesn't get it, but you get it. And the only way they get it is if you give it to them. I sat with some men this week, and I was talking about the futures and how things are passed on. I sat with several commercial people this week, and I asked one of them, of course, I'm a talker, so it's, you know, I'm a talker. I don't know if y'all figured that out yet. So they didn't really get to control the conversation, just to be honest. And I'm not going to let somebody tell the church what they're going to do, just to be honest. And I asked this broker and his son, I said, I finally got to that age. I looked over there and he looks like a kid. I said, son, how old are you? And he goes, 34. I said, man, I remember 34 on the way up. And everybody kind of giggled. And I said, how did you get in this business? He goes, my last name, my father. Oh, so your father taught you the business. He learned, and he probably learned the hard way. And he looked at me, his dad looked at me and goes, I learned it the hard way. Not everybody gave me a hand up. I said, exactly. So you want to make sure your son gets that? He goes, yep. That's exactly what I'm doing. I'm making sure my son knows the ins and the outs of everything so he's not fooled. Well, let me just share with y'all. That's exactly what we're doing here at Amarillo. And he looked at me and goes, oh, okay. Elders are sitting next to me. They go, that was actually pretty smooth. That was pretty smart. I can talk my way out of something, right? But when we see something happen, do we just stand there and let it happen? Or do we call it out? So if you pull up and you see somebody punching somebody, do you just sit back? Or do you get out and go, hey, what is wrong with you? Hello? Yeah, Charity will step in front of him. She did this when she was a teenager. You know, Charity, 5 foot nothing. And she stands and she's a basketball player. And these two boys started to fight. And she jumps right in the middle. Girls, you're both pretty. True story. One of her friends grabs her, Charity, get out of there. They're fixing to fight. And that was the bigger rumor than their fight. That was the bigger, girls, you're both pretty. So I seen somebody walking down the back alley, a couple guys walking down the back alley the other day when the kids were all over, and hadn't seen them around at all. And we got an empty place down a couple houses, and just watching it, and the neighbors are watching it from behind too. And so I just thought, I'm going to just walk over because I got a lot of stuff. And I walked over to the edge of my property and the edge of my brother's property, and I just stood there by his truck and leaned on it, and I just watched and watched. And they finally come around, and they're looking around. And they grab something off of a porch and start dragging it with them from somebody else's house. Yeah. They don't know I'm watching. Now, I literally am dressed like Jake from State Farm. I have a red shirt on with khakis. And I'm obviously you can see me from a mile away. Look, it's the white Jake from State Farm. He's back. That was for you, Thomas. And I hollered out, hey! Didn't hear anything. So I whistled. Man, that's not yours. Leave it alone. With my father, grandfather voice. Well, these are not young men. These are guys in their 40s. I said, leave it alone. And he turned around and he cussed me and kept on walking and left it alone. So yesterday I seen my neighbor out there looking around. I said, who are you? Right here. I said, I thought so. What are you doing? He goes, I'm trying to keep these knotheads from taking stuff off this property. I'm trying to buy it. I said, man, I hope you get this property because his place is clean. He's got a nice place. He just cleaned that thing completely off. He said, that's what I'm trying to do. Thank you. Thank you. He goes, I've been running people off. I said, thank you. See, if we don't say something, this stuff will continue. If we don't become intolerant of sin, it just continues and it piles up, and we'll be looking at somebody and go, who are you? I'm a fox. I'm a tree. See, when we told our children as they were growing up, you can be anybody you want to be, we weren't talking about trees, birds, cats, dogs, fairies. We weren't talking about all that. We were talking about being a fireman or being a doctor or being a lawyer or grow up and be a teacher or a minister or president maybe. Here's what's going on. You need to listen to this. We have a generation that is left behind from the age of 8 and 9 and 7 to the age of about 28, who maybe 35, who are not working, who are not engaged, who do not believe in God, who believe you can be anything you want to call yourself. And the church has become very intolerant or tolerant of it. And here's what happens. My generation, look at me, I'm gaining the white hair every day. Dina's not, but I am. I look at myself in the mirror and I go, wow, I don't know who he is. He's still good looking, but I don't know who he is. As long as Dina thinks I'm good looking, I don't care. When my generation gets old and cannot do anything, there's a gap of about 20 to 25 years. They don't work. They're not educated. They don't want to. They brought this news out the other day. 10 million men between the ages of 18 and 35 do not have jobs and do not want them. 10 million. That's incredible. That was news the other day. I was listening to business news on Fox. I said, Do you see what's happening here? If I lose a generation and they don't go into anything, they don't get married, and they don't become productive citizens, because I raise my children not just to be grown women, but to be mothers, to be spouses, to be wives. I grew them to be smart, to be educated. All of them have had education. To be able to think on their own. To be able to think with a partner in marriage as the Word shows it. And we got a generation of about 20 to 25 years who are not doing that. They're getting into homosexuality. They're getting into transgender. They're getting into all these things. And what is the greatest fight against your life in marriage is to be one. That's the greatest fight. The enemy, if he can get you away from being one, he's won. He's one part of it. That's common. So if I can get you into a different ideal about your gender and about who you are, you will not reproduce and you will not fulfill the call that's on you from Genesis chapter 1, verse 28. Go, be fruitful, and replenish the earth. That is still a call to us. You say, well, we're having 8 billion people. I remember when it turned to 6 billion. I was a grown adult when it turned 6 billion. I remember I was a kid when it turned 5 billion. It'll be 8 billion real soon. We're going to have a generational gap. We're going to have a gap there that's so bad, the workforce will not continue and we'll have to outsource everything, and everything you have, it's already being done. There was a time when I was a kid, if you broke down on the side of the highway, you'd go to a convenience store and you go in the very back where they had a can of oil, transmission fluid, a few not filters, but a few funnels, and then they'd have this little bitty set made in China or Taiwan, and it's the junkiest set of tools you could buy. But maybe, just maybe, you might be able to put your belt back on your alternator. So you buy that set and you stick it in the back of your car. Do you remember those days? But you knew if you're going to get something good, you need to get Snap-on, you need to get Craftsman, you need to get Mac or something of that nature, right? Because otherwise, you put a little stress on that, it breaks. But one-time use, and then throw it away, and it was $10. Those days are gone. They're the mainstream now. There was a time if you bought something from China, it was junk. If If you bought something from Japan, it was junk. Or Taiwan, it was junk. Now that's everything we've got. Try looking to see if it's American made anymore. Not your phones. The phone you're carrying is made in India or China. Not your cars. My car's made in Germany. I know that, my wife's. But my other cars, they're all made in America. You say, you got some old stuff then. I say, I sure do. Yep, sure do. But Mom's got a nice car. And if they are assembled in America, they're built and then brought to America to finish assembling. We become tolerant of other people to such a degree that their actions and their sins and their mouth are not shutting up. So you have remnants who are standing up. This is why I prayed this over you. You have remnants who are standing up and saying, this is not right. I told the Africans when I was over there, the Kenyans, I said, do not be enamored by America. Please do not be enamored by America. I know a lot of you want to go to America. The first thing that will happen when you get to America is you'll be challenged on your identity. I have parents of ministers and government leaders who ask me about the schools in America when I stand before them. Tell me, we'll sit and have a little bit of tea, and they'll say, tell me about the schools. Where should I send my kids to college in America? We have the money. I'm going to say, be very, 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 very wise. If you do not have a network of Christians who can surround them, do not send them. I told this to one minister, and him and his wife, and he goes, are you sure? I said, I promise you. Well, what about Germany? Don't send them to Germany. Don't send them to France. Find a place close, local, that's Christians, and get them raised. And don't send them, if you want to send them to finishing school after they're 24, 25 and get their master's or doctorate, that's one thing. But their early days, they will be manipulated on their identity, their sexuality, and their purpose. And they go, really? I said, yes. So it is today. You and I have this amazing ability to stand up and say, enough! Hey, that's not yours. Hey, listen up. As my family would say, as mama's voice. Well, we need some father voices. We need some father voices. And those father voices are, pull your pants up. Tuck your shirt in. I got my shirt untucked today. You see how that is? Man, I heard that all my life. Tuck your shirt in. Pull your pants up. I never carried my pants low. Put my belt on. Shine your shoes, boy. Don't you have any respect? Learn to say yes, sir, no, sir. We have to come back to that. And here's what's happening. Those who are drawing close to the Lord in worship, who are drawing closer to the Lord in prayer, who are drawing closer to the Lord in family, are doing that. And I tell my people over in Kenya, don't be enamored by America. We have a lot of problems. Learn to grow where you're planted. Learn to grow where you're planted. You will bloom there. You will bloom there. And everybody will have fruit from you. Look at us and you think we got all the money in the world. I said, you have no idea the expenses we have. And when I tell them the expenses side of it, they go, oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. Here's a simple one for you. Eggs here. A carton of eggs can be $5, just one carton. A flat of eggs can be $20. Just remember where you go. You're buying eggs from somebody. It's pretty easy. They're in the back of their cars, selling them out of the back of their cars, just straight from the farm, and they're 80 cents. Yeah. Or on the bicycle, or however it is. And they say, we want to be in America. No, percentage-wise, you're better staying here. Can't find a job. There may be lots of jobs in America, but you're not going to get one not like that. God's given you a measure of faith. It's not your faith, guys. It's His. It says to each one of us is given a measure of faith. This is Romans 12. And here's how we've been taught sometimes. Well, you get a cup, yours is bigger and yours is smaller, and yours is bigger and yours is medium. That's not how it is. It's not how it is. How it really is His faith. What if you walked around as though you had His faith? Because that's actually the measure you were given. You live by the faith of another.